So, leave it to David Pagnotta to stir the pot and to get things going between the Calgary Flames and the St. Louis Blues. Yeah, that's right, we're going over another one of these St. Louis ex-Alberta connections, because of course, the St. Louis Blues and the Oilers, that was an entire thing. There were 2 offer sheets and there was a trade. But this is the article that I wanted to go out there and show off to you in this video. It's from NHLRumours.com, published on August 31st by Mark Asen. Essentially, what this article does is it transcribes some comments made by David Pagnotta on NHL Network in regards to the Calgary Flames and whether or not they have any more plans this offseason. This article is great because they don't really provide any insight or analysis, they just transcribe the comments made by Pagnotta on NHL Network, which makes it easier for us to recap what it is that he says and screenshot it, put it on the screen, etc., etc. So, let's go out there and read what it is the NHL Network segment says. Jamie Hirsch says this: earlier this summer, another goalie was on the move north of the border, as Calgary sent Jacob Markstrom east to the New Jersey Devils. The Flames have been very busy so far under GM Craig Conroy the past couple of seasons. Do you have any updates on their plans for the rest of the offseason? Pagnotta says this: that Craig Conroy's phone lines are wide open. His door to his office is open. If you send him a fax, if you still do that, do it. He's willing to listen. You've got Nazem Kadri that they're willing to trade. Now, Naz has no movement clause. My understanding is that he would be willing to go a little bit more back east. Not necessarily back home to Toronto, but somewhere in that vicinity. Oh boy, that's an entire other idea. Oh boy, that's crazy. In addition to him, Rasmus Andersson, they're willing to still take calls on. He has another year left on his contract. He has some no-trade protection, but there's some belief within the Flames and within the NHL that this might be his last season as a Flame. That the Flames will seriously be looking to move him this season if something isn't done over the course of the summer. MacKenzie Weegar generated some interest over the summer as well. I believe St. Louis, before they went the direction of Philip Broberg, were kicking tires on that. I know around the draft there were some discussions, but Calgary is willing to listen on Weegar as well. So, MacKenzie Weegar is the commentary topic today, because when it comes to Weegar, he's one of these guys that I think is more underrated than most would assume. Weegar is 30 years old, 6 feet 201 right-handed guy, signed till the end of 2031, making $6.25 million a year. Now, Weegar was always pretty good with the Florida Panthers. It's why he got traded to Calgary in the huge Matthew Tkachuk trade. But this previous season, he had a career high, getting 52 points and 20 goals in 82 games. Imagine that, 20 goals in an NHL season as a defenseman. Who does that? There were literally only 4 defensemen in the NHL last year to get 20 goals. Yossi Makar-Dahlin and MacKenzie Weegar. He had more goals than Evan Bouchard. So, this is one of these all-round versatile players. He can produce points, and he is an absolute menace defensively. He blocks shots, he hits guys, he reads the play well in his own zone. There's a lot to like out of MacKenzie Weegar. And so, when you think about the Calgary Flames, you think about their direction. Weegar, of course, is in his 30s, so he may not necessarily be the kind of guy to commit significant time to, but he's really good right now, so if you wanted to see what he could fetch in the market, send him over to a team that's more competitive, or even send him to a team that's trying to transition, MacKenzie Weegar could definitely be seen as an option. Which is why it's so intriguing to me that the St. Louis Blues, of all teams, were apparently in on Weegar. We know they got themselves a defenseman by signing Philip Broberg to that offer sheet, but I feel like part of the philosophy with St. Louis getting Broberg was that, hey, this St. Louis team is not really too competitive right now. They want to get younger, they want to get guys for their future, and Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway, both of these guys do that. MacKenzie Weegar, on the other hand, I don't really think he accomplishes the same long-term goal. Sure, he's good now, and he will improve the quality of that team, maybe even to a better extent than what Philip Broberg would do with the St. Louis Blues right now. But MacKenzie Weegar is a much older player, and his timeline of long-term success is definitely not to the same capacity of what Philip Broberg could get. So, when I think about the Blues, I kind of question if they were going after MacKenzie Weegar, if they really wanted to commit to him in the same way they committed to Broberg, would they be going down some sort of a path to be more competitive in the upcoming season? They wanted to maybe force a playoff berth, they wanted to be a wild card contender. Are they capable of doing that? If they went after Weegar and they got him, okay, great, but I don't know if this team with Weegar is enough to fully make a playoff push and then try to remain competitive while they still have some of these other guys. I mean, they have their cup, so it's okay. They already won in 2019. I don't think anybody in St. Louis is itching for another one, but you kind of have to question the direction if they did go down this path. Of course, though, David Pagnotta is saying that it was really just interest. The St. Louis Blues were kicking tires on this, according to his sources. It kind of gets me thinking, okay, what was the trade going to look like? If there was some sort of an almost trade situation here, what would the price have been on a MacKenzie Weegar, and whether or not the St. Louis Blues would have been able to pay that? You also have to think, okay, MacKenzie Weegar's value, you could say, maybe is at an all-time high. He plays like a top 2 defenseman, he scores points like a top pairing defenseman. He's paid, maybe not to the same capacity though. You could say that the $6 million something contract that he's got is a bit of a steal. So there would probably be a lot of assets the Calgary Flames would demand in some sort of a MacKenzie Weegar trade. Hey, this is one of our better defenders, he's strong, he's hard-nosed, he scores goals, and he could be yours for the low price of a first and a prospect and a roster player. Who really knows? Of course, when you think about the cost and the price to get this guy, maybe that's a lot more in the direction why St. Louis would have steered towards Broberg instead. Hey, do we want to shell out all these assets for a guy like Weegar who is going to be good, but who's not going to be too good for long? Or we can just send away a second-round pick and get Philip Broberg signed to an offer sheet for 2 years, and then we'll re-sign him and he'll be cheaper, and we'll get this guy who will age into his NHL role longer term. Because Broberg, of course, is like 7 years younger than the guy. So it makes sense here from St. Louis's POV if they wanted to get younger, why they went with Broberg instead, but I did find it intriguing to bring up how MacKenzie Weegar was linked and almost potentially traded to the St. Louis Blues. The David Pagnotta quotes here on the NHL Network program say that right now Calgary is kind of open. They're unofficially entertaining the whole thought process of a full-on rebuild. They haven't officially gone in that direction yet, but if they're willing to listen on Kadri and Anderson and Weegar and Huberdeau even, you've got to imagine that a rebuild season is not that far behind. So we're going to keep tabs, and that's certainly, and everybody should, if the Calgary Flames are pretty much open for business, if they get the right packages in place. So, if you're a Flames fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of a MacKenzie Weegar trade to the St. Louis Blues and whether or not you think this would have been better for your team to trade him now instead of waiting until potentially the trade deadline or beyond. If you're a St. Louis Blues fan, how do you feel about this entire idea, and would you have liked to see Weegar on your team now instead of Philip Broberg? I get it, most of y'all are happy about the Broberg offer sheet because you have this guy cost controlled for the next 2 years. He could be better, he's still young, and when you re-sign him in 2 years, then you could give him the proper contract that's a lot more in tune with what it is that he's actually worth. But MacKenzie Weegar, what are your thoughts on him? Would he have been a better option in your opinion? Short-term, long-term, whatever, and would you have been willing to pay whatever price would have been there? Because it would have been high. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.